Hello and welcome to today's second video. It is the car launch day of the AMR21 and we have just had it. I've just released my video analysing that and comparing it to the 2021 car, and I said I might just do a video comparing it to the W12. Now I've got a spare couple of minutes, so here is that video. The Aston Martin AMR21 versus the Mercedes W12. So let's jump on into a few of the similar angles that we have of these two cars, and the first one is the side-on comparison. Now we're going to start from the left of the car and work our way down to the right and the rear end of the car. So firstly we can start off with the front wing section of these two. They are very similar, but they are actually ever so slightly different. The front wing cutouts follow slightly different shapes, but they are definitely of the same design philosophy. Now obviously this is harking back to the fact that Racing Point were wound up in all of that controversy, the copying controversy of last year. They still have essentially what was the W10 to work off of to produce this car. And also with the rules on the copycat cars, etc., it is definitely not a copy, it is just a Aston Martin's evolution of what they had last year, which was very similar to the Mercedes colour. Then the next thing we can note is the actual antenna stalks are fairly similar and again of similar designs. It's just Aston Martin have got two and the wiry things come out of the main body sooner than the Mercedes, who have got three with the housing actually rising up above the wires. Not that that's a big difference in the slightest. But interestingly, the first sort of difference that we can really see is in the Mercedes. They've got this section of barge boards here, just between or in the middle of the front wheels and the side pods, which is not evident here on the Aston Martin. There is an extra section of the barge boards that Mercedes have just before the side pod entrance that Aston Martin doesn't, whereas the actual main makeup of the sideboards and the barge board areas just literally just before the side pods is much the same. They follow very similar horizontal strake patterns, and I would say they are the same, personally, looking at these two photos. And like I pointed out in my Aston Martin video where I broke down my first thoughts of the livery and compared it to last year, we can see that stripe that just follows the pink stripe, the BWT stripe that follows down the car is very similar and reminiscent of the Mercedes turquoise stripe that they have running down their car also. But next up is of course the bulge. Now Mercedes is small, it's noticeable and it is there, but Aston Martin, it is a whopper. It is massive, so I'll be very interested to see what is there on the Williams, to see if there is anything like this. But Mercedes also have the secondary one, in which Aston Martin don't, whereas Mercedes have the one just underneath the 44 on one of the AMGs. I haven't actually put an arrow on it, I should have, but I haven't, but it is there. Trust me, it is there if you go and look at the photos, whereas Aston Martin don't have that secondary bulge. Equally, the shark fin sections of the cars are both very similar, although Aston Martin don't actually have this small little T-wing that Mercedes do have, which is present on some of the other shots. It's just quite an interesting change, but that is something that can very easily happen and they can very quickly implement if it is needed. And also, these rear wings are practically identical. They all have these sort of three little steps going down from the top of it to the large extendy bit at the back, and Mercedes has that also. I'm not an aerodynamicist, so I don't know all of these technical terms. I feel like I say that in all of these videos, but just for any new viewers that have come in, I don't know any technical terms at all, or the benefits of following such designs. I just play spot the difference between these two cars. And then finally at the rear, they do actually follow very similar rear packages, so we can see the contours and the shadows on the Mercedes, and we can see that they very well line up with what is here on the Aston Martin, which is fair because they do have the same power units in the back, but equally so does the McLaren, and the McLaren doesn't have this bulge. Or at least that I remember. I may have to do a Mercedes versus McLaren comparison now to see if McLaren had that bulge. I don't think they did. Now I'm sure there is an absolute ton more details that people are going to come up with in the next couple of days, even hours after I've uploaded this video as well, but let's just move on into a front comparison of these two cars, sort of a side-on profile. There isn't too much I can draw from this, apart from the rear wing. It's got the same little dip in it from one to the other as well, towards the DRS section of the rear wing. And then the next thing to highlight is the fact that the nose is also of a very similar shape between these two cars. Now, I thought in my Aston Martin video they'd gone for a bit more of a pointy bulbous section, whereas Mercedes had stuck to their traditional round bulbous section, but it hasn't appeared to be the case. And then definitely just looking at the front head-on views of these two cars, we can see the nose details here, that they are practically the same, but I always thought Aston Martin was just a little bit more pointed. It's possible that the cape sections follow slightly different patterns, but we'll have to wait to see some further detailed pictures other than these renders here. But interestingly, the actual front wing patterns are completely different. This is what I pointed out in the Aston Martin video as well, because Aston Martin seems to follow this really interesting shape on the top section of this front wing, on the top element, whereas Mercedes just doesn't have that. It's a very straight, very traditional front wing element, whereas Aston Martin's is a little bit on the radical side. And then, of course, turning our attention to the cape section, they are very, very similar, but of course they are shrouded in shadows in these images. Also, interestingly, the brake ducts are different. Again, I don't have an arrow pointed on them as I have literally just noticed it here, but Mercedes seems to have more of a front brake duct on the bottom half, just at the tippity end of the red arrow pointing towards the cape on the Mercedes, whereas that is not present at all on the Aston Martin at the tippity end of their red arrow next to the cape section, which could be as a result of the technical rule changes that happened last year, as that was the main area of concern from Renault in all of their challenges against Racing Point. It was the front and the rear brake ducts, so definitely if they're going to change something, it is going to be that area. And then the final difference that I've spotted is in the actual barge board construction. We can see a nice gap here on both sides for the Aston Martin, whereas the Mercedes, it is not a gap. It is a nice continued enclosed boxy sort of shape. And there we go, there are some of the quick comparisons that I have drawn between the AMR21 from Aston Martin and Mercedes W12. Obviously there are going to be a bunch more, and these are only the official renders and only the initial renders that have come out. We'll have to wait for some shakedowns and especially the testing images that get launched to see all the new parts the teams are running, and then we can make some more comparisons there. But it's just interesting to see what teams have done and the approaches that they've made, and also the similarities between what was the copycat Racing Point, the pink Mercedes. It is ever so slightly different. It still follows the same design philosophy, as that is exactly what they started with, but it is now definitely 100% different, but similar at the same time. But that is all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.